Good morning. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, May 28th to order. With your permission, Mr. Lear?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll be chairing the committee for Mr. Lear today. Need a roll call, please.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Seroy?
Present.
Mr. Washington?
Present.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Ms. Weber? I think she needs her set. She was here earlier.
We'll come back to Carol.
Mr. Payton?
Present.
Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Present.
Mr. Zenz? Ms. Haas?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Ms. Acolo? Ms. Acolo?
Oh, present. I'm sorry.
That's
I'm here.
okay. Mr. Dunnell?
You guys are cutting in and out.
Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Ms. Weber?
I'm present, thank you.
All
You're
right.
welcome. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, so we have anything under public comment? No public comment today. Our first item of business is a presentation from NIMEC. They're our company that takes bids from all the electrical aggregation companies out there, brings them in forward to us. I work with this gentleman to go through the bids, the recommendations, and then we hone those down to some options here for the Finance Committee. So it is renewal or option time of the year, and with that, David Hoover, I guess the floor is yours right now.
Thank you. What we're dealing with, again, just for a quick review, is the aggregation program. This is a program by which the county can shop for lower, more favorable power rates for your residents' home electric ComEd bills. We've had the program in place for several years, and in addition to trying to bring in lower rates for your residents, we also have built into that certain payments back to the county, which you'll see here in a second. Let me see if I can you enable me to share my screen? I'm disabled.
I have it right.
Got it? There we go. So we just recently, just this morning actually, went to bid. And let me just kind of walk you through what we've got here. The current ComEd rate, which takes effect in, in a few days here in June for the next 12 months, it actually is a variable rate within certain bands. And so up at the top of the screen here, you'll see that the ComEd rate can go as low as 5,973 and as high as 7.633. That's for the next 12 months. We only know 12 months at a time, and so that's what we're dealing with. Your current rate here in the beige banner coming across, you're currently with Dynegy. Your rate is 6.95 cents. That compares favorably. The current ComEd rate is around 7.15, so that's above the ComEd rate, or excuse me, that's below the ComEd rate. And again, we have built in a civic payment back to the county. It varies a little bit based on volume, but that has been approximately about $125,000 annually that has been incurring for the last 3 years. When we went to renew, we got prices this morning from 5 suppliers for a renewal of what we call the fixed rate program. And that fixed rate program, the lowest supplier is Eligo, and their prices came in at 6.159 for a 1 year, 6.2 and 6.4 for a 2 and a 3 year rate. Just to be clear, if you choose a multiple year rate, you would pay that one rate for the entire term. We also built into that same compensation level, which is, again, comes out to about $125,000 a year. But again, let me just draw your attention to the fact that the ComEd rate can drop down as low as 5.973. This is at 6.159, so you do have a chance that you can go quote unquote underwater, and on the 12-month and more risk in the 2 and the 3 year. Plus, we don't know what the rate's going to be in 2 and 3 years. We also received pricing for a second option, and this option, quite frankly, is the most favorable option that all of our programs that have renewed in the last year, which are about 20 or so, have taken advantage of this last program. Because the ComEd rate now has been set, much closer to the market, and because of the variation in that, we are now offering a second product where we will match the ComEd rate identically month to month to month for residents. So to be clear, there's no savings for the resident. There's no risk that the ComEd rate would actually drop down underneath the ComEd rate. It wouldn't drop down under your program rate. So it just literally matches the ComEd rate month to month to month. For all the variations, we would match that identically. And so why would we do this? Well, we built into this a little bit higher payment back to the county. And so, yeah, so those are the two options that we had before you. I'll just open it up for questions.
Just for explanation, the principle that I asked David to look at is how do we best leverage the buying power of the county so we can have some predictability in a very unpredictable energy market. We did want to look at some point that we're underwater, as he mentioned, but also the opportunity to maximize the revenue for the county, because we are in a position that we have to look at every option as far as being able to fund operations within the county with the current knowns, the current unknowns, and then what's coming later in this year and then down the road. So, and then this is a 12 to 36 month agreement. We can choose 1, 2, or 3 years on this as a board. So just know that when I wanted to give the board as much opportunity to realize increased revenue without costing our taxpayers anything. And that's why I wanted to put that to the board. So questions, please, as David mentioned.
If I can mention 2 more things, Andy, before you open it up. Number 1, the $425,000 is an annual payment. Right. So if you do elect a multi-year program, that would be $425 annually. And by the way, that $425 is contractual. It's not a volume based. It's a hard contractual number. I had another point, but I'll bring it up later once I remember it.
So is there questions from the committee on to David? Sorry, can we see everybody?
I think he needs to stop sharing his screen.
Could you stop sharing at this point? Does everybody have a look at the numbers?
I have a question.
Mr. Kinzinger, yes.
Using between the MC squared and the illegal energy, what is the average cost difference for the homeowner? In other words, using the rates that MC squared would use now, the ComEd guaranteed rate, and the 6.159 cent rate, what's the monthly cost to the homeowner, the difference, average?
That's a good question. I'll answer that, but unfortunately, I'll have to give you a little bit of explanation to that. We don't know what the ComEd rate's going to be. The ComEd rate will fluctuate between that 5.9 and 7.6. It just moves around. If I were to guess, if I were to guess a number, and again, it would be based on historical numbers and based on, I would say it would be approximately 6.6, and then the difference, between that and the 6.159 times, so wait, 50, turns out to be about $3.74 a month to the homeowner.
So and then you kept a portion of that for the civic payment of $425,000. Is that the way the civic payment works, the savings?
No, that would be, the rate is the rate the resident would, at the LIGO number, those are fixed rates that the resident would receive. Baked into that is that, $125,000 payment. So that's already in there. So the residents in the LIGO model would receive that fixed rate. Okay, the issue, and on the MC squared model, they would just receive whatever the fluctuating ComEd rate would be each month.
So my question is, in order to come up with that $425,000 civic payment, you must have some idea of the difference between the ComEd guaranteed rate and what you can buy the electricity for. And I'm trying to figure out what is that average cost per homeowner. Is the homeowner saving $3 a month if we go to LIGO, or is he, how much money do you think he's saving a month? Maybe I misunderstood what you said.
So the answer, so the answer is, the question is, what's the difference between the LIGO price to a homeowner and the ComEd rate?
True, that's my question.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's hard to answer because I don't know what the ComEd rate is going to be over the next 12 months.
Let's just pick current rate. What's right now?
Well, again, they state a rate, and then every month they put an adjustment to that. Every month there is a variable adjustment which is unpredictable.
Could we use last month's rate?
I can tell you that what I would say is based on the future rates that ComEd has and the historical adjustment, just historical, you would come in around 6.6 cents as a ComEd basis to compare. 6.6 cents. So the difference between 6.6 and 6.159 on the LIGO 1-year deal is about $3.74 per month to the average homeowner.
And just for talking purposes, what was the rate last month for ComEd?
It was 7.2. That was the stated rate, and then they had an adjustment. I think it was minus 0.3, so it would have been 6.9.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Lear.
what are the factors that causes ComEd to fluctuate their rate?
Yeah. If you have a few minutes, I'll answer that question. So there is an independent state of Illinois administration that actually does the purchasing of this electricity on behalf of all residents who take power through ComEd. That state agency has a number of contracts that they have in the future, and they anticipate what the usage is going to be. However, every month, the actual usage from all these ComEd users changes, and therefore there is an adjustment, a true-up needed by that agency. They cannot match the future use exactly, and so there is a true-up because the state of Illinois doesn't have budget capacity to absorb that. And that true-up is what this adjustment is on a monthly basis. Now, to answer your question, can we predict that? No. All I can tell you is historically, it can range from a credit of ½ cent up to an extra charge of ½ cent, anywhere in between there. And I can just tell you over the last 4 years, it has been approximately a credit of about ¼ cent. In other words, so if the ComEd rate were 7 cents, the credit would drop that down and bring it down to roughly 6.75 cents. And so that's the basis that which the adjustment does monthly. I regret to tell you it is not predictable.
Did you have anything else, Mr. Lear? Follow up?
No follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts on this? Questions? You know, I would hope that the committee, when a motion is made, considers where we're at, and the responsibility of the committee is on finances. With us not knowing what's coming, and we can predict that we're going to be seeing a substantial shortfall when our tax revenues realize, I would recommend that the motion may consider being able to capture any revenues we possibly can, as long as the taxpayers are not on the hook for it. And this rate is pegged to the ComEd rate, so that's why we had this other option produced for you. So we can protect their rate, keep it the same as what they would be paying on their own, and use our buying power to be able to make sure that we have the operational resources we need. So with that, I'll take a motion from the floor on a recommendation to for one of these two programs, the fixed or the alternate aggregate.
My motion,
Mr. Washington,
that we accept MC square.
is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Kinzinger, any other discussion on that matter? Alrighty, and the reason that he brought those rates in, we have to peg the rates on the day that they're offered. So that's why he had to gather up the new quotes this morning, because that market is a daily market. So as far as one question I have with the MC squared, is that something that has to be executed immediately, or can it wait for the full board? How does that work as opposed to the fixed price?
We have a little bit more room, but we would like to have that contract reviewed in the next couple of business days.
Okay. So as long as the committee understands that we have to execute that and then send it to the full board, this is a little different than everything else because you're on a timeline with the way the market purchasing has to work. So we'll be sending it with a recommendation, but I'll need to get the ball moving before the full board meeting. It's just the way that it works with this type of purchasing. So as long as we're okay with that and it's understood.
Andy,
Yes, sir.
is there any chance that we could also move this to the special meeting Tuesday?
Well, yeah, we could put this on the special meeting. That's a good idea, Bones. Yeah, we can move that to the full.
We're saving a whole week on that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, David, we have a special meeting coming on Tuesday for the board. But if you want to get the paperwork together, we can definitely execute that.
Yeah, I'll have to, I think holding the price till then may be problematic, so we might need to actually enter into the paperwork prior to that.
Okay.
And I'll ask if they can hold it till next Wednesday afternoon, but I'll get back to you, Andy, on that in the next couple.
Okay.
In the next couple hours.
Sure. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other thoughts or questions on this? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Washington,
Aye.
Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Ms. Weber,
Aye.
Mr. Payton, Mr. Payton,
Kirkstra is still muted.
Mr. Payton,
Kirkstra is still muted.
Ms. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger,
Aye.
Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson, Ms. DiColo,
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler,
Aye.
motion carries.
Alrighty, thank you. Thanks, David. Have a good. We'll talk here later this morning. Okay.
So thank
All
you
right.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next up is approval of the minutes, April 30th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Who do we have? Was it Mrs. Parker and Mr. Payton? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under Finance Department, Steve McCarty. Our first up is the FY 2019 CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report from Smith, Kelly, Dykstra, and Ohm. Carmen Huizinga is here to walk through things with us. And she has the ability to share her screen, I believe, now. If you need that, there you go. Floor is yours, Carmen.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
It's obviously been a challenging time over the last several weeks for all of us, but I am happy to report that the annual financial report is final. We do have a report in proper format that Steve can get submitted to the regulatory authorities today. He doesn't have it in his hands yet, but it's ready. So I'm just going to take you through the highlights of the report. I think you've gotten a partial draft of the report. I will tell you that on the fund financial statements, there were no major adjustments. So what you saw from the finance department during the year, during the fiscal year 19 through November and then into January and February when Steve was giving those final numbers to you, basically that is what it ended up being. So this is historical knowledge. We're 6 months into the new fiscal year, but I will just go over a few of the highlights. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully. Is it going? Can you see it? Can somebody confirm?
Nope.
No.
It's not choosing it. Let's see. Can you see that? It's just, oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm doing it wrong. There we go. Can somebody confirm?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay. So first of all, we're doing an audit. So our main objective is to issue an opinion on the financial statements for the county. We did issue an unmodified opinion on those financial statements. We also perform our audit in accordance with government auditing standards, and there were no matters of non-compliance required to be reported under government auditing standards. We did report one material weakness in internal controls related to the collector fund, and that was basically a repeat finding from last year. The issue from last year was partially corrected, but not 100%. The first couple sets of financial statements in the report are a high-level summary of the county. It shows governmental activities and it shows business type activities, and that combines all of your funds together into two columns, basically. It excludes fiduciary activity on those two statements. And then it also includes items like depreciation and long-term liabilities like your pension liabilities. And those things are not normally included in your financial statements during the year. Those are year-end adjustments that are done for financial statement purposes. So the 2019 net position ended up at 48.9 million countywide, compared to 45.8 million countywide. Net position is a measure of whether the overall health of the county is increasing. And as you can see, it did increase. Within the statement, or within the net position number, it's made up of three categories. There's net investment in capital assets. That was 45.4 million in 2019 compared to 44.3 million in 2018. There's restricted net position. Those would basically be all your special revenue funds where you're either levying or collecting fees that are restricted to certain purposes. And those are relatively comparable to the prior year, 21.7 versus 20.5. And then the last number is the unrestricted amount, and unfortunately that is still a deficit amount. Countywide it did get better. Governmental funds, it got slightly worse if you just look at the governmental activities. So a lot of that deficit is due to those long-term pension liabilities that are recorded, and just the fact that the general fund is also on the statement of net position are non-capital assets, so your cash, your accounts receivable, property taxes receivable. And I just wanted to point out that the cash and investments position did improve in 2019 compared to 2018. It was at 26.9 million compared to 21.8 million in 2018. So that's a definite move in a positive direction. One significant change in 2019 compared to 2018 was in the long-term liabilities category. That went from 36.4 million up to 54 million. And that is due primarily to the long-term liability related to pensions. So that's an actuarial number. It is booked on these financial statements for year end. And that pension liability went from 17.3 million to 35.8. Now, I will point out, obviously, that's a volatile number, and it's based on actuarial calculations and what the market is doing. So you're going to see fluctuations in that from year to year. I thought it would be interesting to put up a graph. The statement of activities is kind of like an income statement, but it is presented in a different manner for governments. It shows it in a net expense format. So it starts with the expenses by function, and then any program revenues that come in for those functions offset those expenses. And then the net expenses that are remaining are funded by general revenues and tax revenues. So this graph shows you for the past 3 years how much money was required to be funded by taxes and general revenues that were not offset by charges for services and fees. So public safety is the biggest function of the county, and then followed by general government, or actually followed by transportation, and then court services and general government. After those high-level entity-wide financial statements, you'll see in the report there's fund statements. And they start out with the governmental funds, and these consist of your general fund, the tort fund, the pension fund, and then highway fund, and all the remaining special funds, basically. On the financial statements, I do want to point out that the general fund is combined with the tort fund. So when you look at that, it might not be exactly what you're used to seeing in those front pages. But this graph that I have up on the screen shows the general fund balance excluding the tort fund. And it shows that the 2019 general fund balance became a positive number for the first time since 2012. So that's a good move in the right direction. And I know that was the goal of the county board and the finance department and all the department heads. So that's very good to see. I understand that with the situation right now, that's a little bit in jeopardy, but I know the board is taking measures to maintain that financial position in the general fund. Contributing, well, I'm going to go back. Oops. Contributing to that positive increase in the fund balance was an increase in revenues over the prior year of 2.5 million. Contributors to that increase were the increase in inmate revenues, the increase in tax revenues, and then you also have that continued recognition of the revenue from the sale of the juvenile detention center last year. The general fund's expenditures, excluding tort, increased by 2.1 million. The majority of that increase consisted of vehicle purchases that were financed by leases, and then the public safety departments as a whole, or that function as a whole, increased approximately 1 million. Following the governmental funds financial statements are the enterprise funds financial statements, and those are what we consider the business type activities of the county. So that's the ETSB and animal control. And ETSB has been making significant investments into upgrading their infrastructure, yet they did have a positive increase to net position of $900,000 in 2019, and they did have an increase in their cash and investment position of $1.2 million. So they are holding a pretty strong position even with all of the improvements that they are putting into place. Following the enterprise funds are the fiduciary funds. These are funds that held or maybe managed by the county, but they're not for county operations. Those are usually pass-through funds that get divvied out to other entities, or some of it may come back into the general fund, but basically those are monies and funds that are held on behalf of others. So private purpose trust funds include the Township Motor Fuel Fund and then the circuit clerk bonds. And then agency funds include funds such as the county collector, the circuit clerk, that would be the non-bonds, and the circuit clerk, and then the county clerk and sheriff commissary funds. The remaining sections of the report include the footnotes. There were no significant new footnotes this year in the financial statements, but those obviously provide a lot more detailed information about the numbers presented on the financials, as well as the accounting policies that the county follows. Following that are budgetary comparisons. There's combining statements to show all of the funds that roll up into the ones on the front pages. And then following that is statistical information. And if you've never looked at that statistical information, I would encourage you to do so. It has some very interesting facts about our county and about the tax base and about some operating statistics. So we look through them as we're putting the report together, and I just find them interesting. So I would encourage anybody to take a look at those. And then also in the financial report, the finance department prepares a letter of transmittal and a management's discussion and analysis. And that provides a very good overview of the county's finances, upcoming economic factors, and just a good overview in kind of non-accounting language of those county financials. So definitely I would encourage you, if you look at nothing else, I would read that. In addition to the main financial report, we also perform a single audit, which is where we look at federal or compliance with federal compliance regulations on monies that are originated at a federal source. So they may have been passed through the state, but they originated at a federal source. So this year we looked at the workforce grants, we looked at the WIC grant at the health department, and also looked at the new opioid grant at the health department. They increased funding on that grant quite a bit this year. That report is in the process of being finalized, so it's not 100% done yet, but that should be done in the next week or two. We also are required to do a compliance audit on the circuit clerk, and the Office of the Courts requires that. That has been issued, and so that can be submitted. We will also be getting in your hands our formal communications with governance. Those are required under our governmental auditing standards and actually under general auditing standards. And then also a management letter. And the management letter consists of things that we found throughout the audit that we just feel are worthy of your attention. They didn't rise to the level of a formal finding, but we feel like it's informative and we want to be transparent with anything that we found during the audit. At this time, I guess I can open it up for any questions if anybody has anything. I was going to keep it high level and kind of brief, so if there's anything specific people have questions on, feel free.
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Kinzinger.
2 items. First of all, I may have missed it, but I did not get a copy of your report. So what I'm speaking from is just what you presented this morning, and I'm not sure where I missed that. But one of the slides that you presented looked at interest in 2019 as a higher number than any other year. What was that number?
Well, let me look at the big report and let me see.
And while she's looking, I believe Steve is going to be sending that out. She just, I believe, has it finalized one there now, but did not have it yesterday, I believe. So,
okay, thank you.
And we'll get that out right after this, as soon as we get
Trying
it.
to look at the interest number on the statement of activities. It says interest and fiscal charges were $533,000. So if that, I don't know if that looks accurate on there. It does. Yeah, it might have just not shown up well on the graph, but if you want more detailed information on that, I can, put that together.
It appeared to me that 2019 was the only year that had significant interest, and that
just might be a blip on that report, so I apologize for that, but I would imagine that well, it's 500,000, but it wouldn't have prior years. No. I have Marcy in here with me, who also helped with the audit, but she's not on camera, so I apologize for that.
Okay, I was just.
So she's helping me answer those questions.
Okay, it just looked like I didn't understand the interest number.
Yeah, I agree with you that that does look strange. So maybe the graph didn't pick up something, or it was so small that it just didn't, show up on the scale.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Else?
Anyone else have questions about the audit? What's the deadline in this to be sent in? Is it June 1st? It has to be in the controller's hands, or with the federal government, I mean?
By tomorrow.
It's by tomorrow. Okay. I'm glad we had the meeting today. So, and I believe now that interest number that Ron was talking about that's interest incurred on the county. Is it from our bonds mostly, things like that? Is that
yes.
what that is?
It would be bonds and capital leases.
Okay. And nothing really has changed to your question, Ron. I don't remember us getting into any new agreements, and I pretty sure we didn't. We're not in a buy-in mode, so. I would be curious to see what that is too once we figure it out.
There were some new vehicle capital leases during 2019, so that could have contributed a little bit to an increase, but
not that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So.
Other questions? So I guess at this point we probably need a motion to approve the CAFR so we can get it out the door to the feds. Is there a motion?
So move to approve.
Mr. Lear, a second.
Second.
Mr. Donnell, any further questions, comments? Let's go ahead and do roll call.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
You're muted,
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
We're unmuting some people here. Hold on.
And it's helpful when they unmute themselves too. So Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Still muted.
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Acolo? Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Ms. Acolo?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All righty.
I didn't hear my name, but I vote aye.
All righty. Thank you, Sam.
So can I quickly just say thank you to everybody for their assistance with the audit? Finance department, the county board, and all of the department heads. They do spend a lot of time helping us out, and I appreciate it very much. We get a lot of cooperation, and that makes it go very smoothly. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.
All right, you all have a good day.
Take care.
All right.
All right, moving on to claims recommended, not recommended for approval. Steve, do you have, want to run through this one?
Yeah, we received a second time a claim for Gulls. It's a uniform company that the Sheriff's Department uses a lot for their employees, and this is a shirt for Animal Control Department. I have not had time to do any research other than the note that's at the bottom from the auditor's office. I would appreciate if they would send backup when they disagree with something. So this is before you because it came to us unapproved, unrecommended to process. So we are looking for direction for this vendor.
Is there a motion to approve the expense?
I'll make the motion to
I'll make
approve
the
it.
motion.
We'll go with Ms. Parker, second, Mr. Hess. It's a animal control polo uniform shirt for, that as ordered by that department, $43. Basically, it says, I'm not signing this until I get what I asked for. Which is, where's the policy that states requires polo shirts for uniforms? Really? So anyways, there's a motion and a second. Any other questions? Mr. Seroy, just a moment. There, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does Mrs. Laird have a uniform policy like the Sheriff's Department for animal control? That's my question. And maybe she could come up with one, and you know, because I feel that they should be well dressed and represent themselves. Some of the animal control officers have uniforms such as the Sheriff's Department, but the office staff should have some kind of shirt or something that says they're where they work at. So I totally agree that this is, there's only one shirt. They should have 5 because there's 5 days in the week, and I'm sure they can't wear the same shirt every day. So maybe she should get 4 more, you know.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to speak to this.
Please, Mr. Downey, or Sheriff Downey, sorry.
So, that's okay.
Mr.
So, what we're trying to do is the uniforms that animal control has right now, we are looking at options that will benefit animal control while they're out in the field doing their job. The uniforms they have now are a little heavy. They don't wear very well. We're trying to get something, and I think the issue that got brought up was that they can wear these. Apparently, the IRS rule, and I may be wrong in it, but I'll tell you what I think I know, and that is that the uniforms or the county shouldn't be paying for things that can be worn somewhere else or used for their personal attire. These aren't going to be used for personal attire. Much like things with badges on them, people really don't walk around with polos with badges or animal control badges because, quite frankly, that's just not what we do, because we don't want to be out in general public when we're not on duty wearing something that has a badge on it. The unfortunate part about this whole thing is that by the time it's gone from finance to auditor to animal control to finance to auditor to animal control to sheriff's office, I will guarantee you that we probably spent 2 to 3 times the amount of money in dealing with this than if it would have just been paid as requested.
Common sense.
Common sense.
Exactly.
Sheriff, and if I could make a suggestion, and it was brought up a few years ago by a former board member, I think John Howard, that there was something happened out in the east side of the county involving animal control, and the animal control's officers looked too much like police officers, and they didn't get the cooperation that I think they would have got if they would have been clearly animal control officers instead of looking like sheriff's deputies. I don't know if you can understand that correlation.
Absolutely.
And maybe I'd like to see that, you know, kind of expand a little bit so we can differentiate the two.
Agreed. Yeah, and that's what Carrie's doing, is we're trying to get away from the uniform police-looking uniform, much more polo, much more friendly-looking, if you will. So yeah, that's a great point.
And not to say that your officers aren't friendly.
We're not trying to get the county for $43. We're trying to improve our department.
Agreed. Thank you.
Agreed.
Any other
Mr.
comments?
Chairman?
Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hess.
this is not the only claim for polo shirts that have been denied by the auditor's office. I believe going back to criminal justice, we had the coroner's shirts were denied by the auditor's office. So this is not a new problem.
No, it's not. Any other questions, comments? If not, roll call vote.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne? Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Colo?
Aye.
Mr. Deno?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye, 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 aye. All right, I guess moving on, Steve, your monthly, the claims report that you're now doing, because somebody else isn't.
Yeah, this report is from May 1st through May 15th. The last one we did to catch up ran through the end of April. So we'll try to get on a normal schedule if we are required to do this continually here. I don't know if there's any questions. I have it up in front of me.
Is there a motion to approve the claims?
So move.
We have a motion, Mr. Washington, a second.
So moved.
Mr. Kinzinger, any other thoughts, questions? Most of this is sent out early, so if there are questions, we could try to get a hold of Steve or myself or somebody or the department head ahead of time. But if they're already right now, let us know. Otherwise, we'll roll call vote this as well.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess? Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. DeColo?
Aye.
Mr. Dennell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, Steve, miscellaneous financial reports?
Yeah, we have updates to the sales tax, income tax, use tax, bed rental, etc. Showing just our current trend. Sales tax, reminder that it was through February, that we received in May. Between hopefully about June 7th through 8th area, we'll see March sales tax. I will send that one out to all the finance committee members just so we can all look at that as soon as we have it. The income tax was noticeably lower. We had that discussion last month with the the month of April is what that was for, and with the tax filings delayed with the COVID situation, I believe some of that will come back at a future month, possibly. I believe I moved to July, if I remember right. So we hopefully will see that come back. So I don't believe that's necessarily a trend. I believe it was a circumstance of the movement, but we'll continue to watch that. I don't know if there's any other questions specifically. One other before we get into that, I did have learned multiple areas since our last meeting that PPRT is estimated to be dropping about 30%. And it looks like because it got hit again with the new budget year with the state budget. So we'll be watching that. So I'm getting communication specifically about the PPRT distributions.
What is PPRT? Remind me.
Personal property replacement tax.
Thank you.
If I might.
That's gonna happen.
Mr. Lear?
Mr. McCarty, at one point you said you thought you might get an estimate from the State Department of Revenue in terms of the impact on sales tax and the COVID situation. Did the State Department of Revenue ever send out an estimate?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, Mr. Lear. They did, but it was not useful information to be able to look forward to what we need to. So unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until we actually see it in order to get the true information. If there's no other questions with those, we could move into cash flow. I have some areas highlighted in the cash flow model. Even though May 20 shows estimated, the bolded numbers for payroll and IMRF are actual numbers. And I highlighted the payroll trend to identify that there's been showing some significant changes as we go through this. So I wanted to identify that for you. And if we look at that trend since February in the total payroll, it's about $225,000 reduction. And if we compare it going all the way back to December, that's a $300,000 deduction. So thanks to all the departments that are working to watch and control things. I believe the majority, this is new information I'm trying to plug in. We just got the latest payroll done just 2 days ago. We're trying to complete the CAFR with SKDO. So I'm still trying to get into all the details, but I believe the majority of the things go to the sheriff and his department and his staff as we continue to work and try to identify all these trends. So there's also, with the IMRF, there's also a reduction in IMRF between 35 and 40,000 there as well. So as we're watching all of this, we also, we're picking up any and all trends that we can, and then it's going to do another update to all the information through May. That'll be our 6 month, plus we'll pick up pre-COVID and during COVID activity, as and try to lock in on every single thing that's going on. So if there's any questions there, but I wanted to highlight that information as well.
Any questions on cash flow for Steve? Are we, I don't know if you said it, Steve, are we still between 30 and 45 days on vendor payments?
Yes. For accounts payable, we are approximately between the 30 and 45 day range on most vendors. We have seen a lower trend with the April claims that are coming in as well. So there is activity that definitely slowed during the closed month in totals and in volume. So that's a big picture look as well. So we've also seen changes there as well.
Okay. Any other questions on cash flow? All right. Is there anything else you have for us, Steve?
No, and that's a question. That's all I have at this time.
Any other general finance questions for Steve?
Mm-mm.
All right, great. Thanks, Steve. Moving on, Treasurer's Office. Nick Africano, we have the Treasurer's Report from May 2020, the County Collector's Report from May 2020, and the monthly resolutions from June 2020. Can I get a motion to combine and approve those, please? Mrs. Parker, a second.
And second.
Mr. Miller, any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Nick?
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Finally see everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Want to let you, I just have a few things here. Tax bills were mailed on Friday the 22nd. And for most people, they start hitting on Tuesday the 26th. I think everybody has been, and especially Steve, I believe, has been interested in, what our tax payments would look like. So I was hoping to be able to give you a trend, but maybe the fact that there's no trend to also put your mind at ease. So far, the first 2 days, we've taken in just about 600,000, 598,238 transactions. First 2 days last year, we took in 1.7 million with 842 transactions, which really worried me until I saw what we did in 2018, which was only 279,075 transactions. So I don't think there's a rhyme or reason, which I think is a good thing. It seems to be, just from an anecdotal sense, pretty typical. Surprising how many people want to still come in and pay their taxes. So far this morning, as of about 5 minutes ago, we're at 75 people and 67,000. So I assume it'll be busy all day. Thanks to the corrections officers that the sheriff has provided. They've been doing a great job keeping people distanced and checking temperatures. Let me just highlight again, as I normally do during tax season, that there are other ways to pay. Of course, you're welcome to come here. We always love to see people. You can mail your payment and then get your receipt online, print it. You can go to any drive-through bank. You don't have to be a member of the bank to pay your taxes. The only bank in the county that doesn't take our taxes is PNC. Everyone else takes them. We have a drop box out in front of the building on Court Street, which is secure. You can pay your payment there as long as it's not with cash. And of course, you can always pay online, which for a lot of people is the most convenient way. If you pay with a credit card, there is a fee. We don't derive any income from that fee. It's through the credit card processor. However, we did this year, because of COVID-19, have our check processing fee waived. So you can pay online with an e-check for free. Another issue is we're going to try something different this year, and I've had some input in the past. On Saturday, June 20th, and I will speak with the sheriff on this specifically because we'll need to hire an off-duty sheriff's deputy. On Saturday, June 20th, tentatively right now between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m., we're going to be open here. That's the Saturday before taxes are due. I think it gives everybody a little bit extra time to come in. And so we'll give that a whirl and see how it works. I don't want to put Andy on the spot, but I want everybody to understand that I have talked to the taxing bodies. They have all been notified that I will be distributing first taxes on July 18th. And I did that. And that's what I normally do. It's about the 18th normally, but the way we laid it out this year is that we gave ourselves some extra time in there so that if this board and the board as a whole wanted to extend the due date by a week or two, depending on, you know, how things look toward that time. And I personally don't think it's people not going to be able to pay. I think the extension may be needed as a result of accommodating a lot of people, but we can look at that as time goes on. But so I built it in so that if in fact this board or anybody, the whole board wanted to extend a week or two, it won't change when taxing districts get their money. So I wanted to leave that out there. And lastly, I've reduced my work staff from 3 full-time people to 2, and instead hired part-time workers for the summer. And I think that's probably the way we're going to leave it right now, based on the uncertainty in the financial uncertainty with COVID. So we have 2 full-time staff now, besides myself, and like normal, we have 3 part-time summer helpers. I think that's all I have. Anybody have anything for me?
Any questions for Nick?
Sheriff, I'll get to you about what I talked about.
Yep, I got it written down. All good.
Thank you, guys. Good to see everybody. Stay safe.
Sure. The only thing I'll mention, Nick, and I guess could have talked about this offline, but when we do get a line of people, we have to figure out which direction that line will go, because we don't want everybody aggregating by the door there. So we may talk about how we're going to flow downstairs, because you know there's going to be a couple of days where the line's going to be out the door, so to speak.
It is, because I mean, you know, I've sort of gone out there and just eyeballed it, and if you're thinking 6 feet, 10 people in line is 60 feet. That certainly puts you to the front door.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Andy, I'm available whenever you
we'll
want.
figure that out. Yeah.
But I think if we do this Saturday payment, frankly, I think we ought to be open for people on a Saturday, and if it works, maybe we'll do it more than one Saturday for second payment. And we'll see how that works. The only issue and the reason I mentioned the sheriff is I don't want to be in this building taking payments on a day when, you know, no one else is around. So as long as it was secure, my staff is obviously willing to be here on Saturday. So thank you, Andy.
Sure. And Todd had a question. But it seems to me that the more we encourage people to go to the banks, except for obviously PNC is the only one I believe that doesn't do this. So they pay at the bank, then they don't really have to stand in line with 30, 40 people on those days. Sure. It's much easier. Yeah.
You know, it's funny because you try to educate the customer as best you can over and over. But I will say, it is so easy to go to the banks, and the service that they provide our county is invaluable. We would need at least 4 more people in this office. And we don't even have the space down here to take it. You can drive in their drive-through. Mm-hmm. You can deposit your taxes. You don't have to have, if one bank's closer than your normal bank, you can go there. And then what they do is we provide prepaid envelopes. And so every Friday we get all the bank's envelopes in. And a couple banks would prefer us to pick them up, so we can go do that for those banks. But
sure.
It's really convenient for the county and mostly for the taxpayers. So.
Sure. Todd, do you have something?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Nick. Hey, I remember before the COVID thing, you had talked about for your high volume parcel holders, you were going to make an appointment for those people to come in and pay their taxes, you know, personally. And have you tried to do that with this, we haven't touched base since then?
I have, Todd, but I will say to this group specifically, and this dovetails with what I just said about really when someone comes in here, and you hear mostly when there's a complaint, You say, well, I put that in the newspaper. Well, I don't do the newspaper. You say, well, I put it online. Well, I don't go online. So for this committee here, I would simply say, if yes, absolutely, Todd. If you have you have constituents that have multiple properties, I will absolutely take that in an appointment situation. A lot of people aren't comfortable out there writing $150,000 checks or bigger. They can call my office and I will schedule with anybody. So that goes for anybody on this call. If you know anybody and they would prefer that, have them call.
Great. Thank you, Nick, and I appreciate you taking your time to do that. And those are the people that are usually waiting for till the last day to pay.
Yeah. Well, last days here are always cash days too. You know, there's a lot of cash that comes in on the last couple of days. But yeah, there's people. I heard it yesterday several times. This is the way I've always done it. This is the way I like doing it. So what do you say? You say, okay, welcome.
Thank you.
All righty, let's just, Jim, Bert?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, thank you for explaining, possibly extending out for people. I've had a number of people reach out to me. I think you and I have talked about this before, about any, helping out the taxpayer. Again, like you said, a lot of people are not, they're going to pay, but the extending could be a benefit to some people who may not right now be able to afford it or waiting on something to come in. So I appreciate that.
Well, Andy, I'll just leave it at this. And I had mentioned this to Andy. I think, I think from a legislative standpoint, the board has to make some moves. I just want you to know that I've built in 2 weeks into my distribution calendar. So no one will get hurt if we extended 2 weeks. And I just think that I wanted to give this board and the whole board flexibility. Certainly we can't extend for 120 days. That's not financially feasible for anyone.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think we should do something for the people.
Any other questions, thoughts? Otherwise, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Go ahead. Sorry. There's one thing I need to circle back on. I realized that when we approved the aggregation, we did not note the term on that, the 1, 2, or the 3-year agreement. The makers of the motion on that, did you have something in mind when you made that motion? I think it was Mr. Washington.
3 years.
3 years?
Yes.
And the person who seconded that, is that your understanding as well?
If Mr. Washington says so, I'll follow him.
Okay. Because I think it might be a good idea to take that, and I don't know if there's a parliamentary procedure opinion on this, but I think maybe we should do a roll call vote to codify the 3 years part of this along with that vote at this point. I don't know if Nancy's still on the phone, but you find that sufficient, Nancy, to cover our bases here?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yes, we failed to mention in the original motion the term of the electrical aggregation, and it was to be 3 years. We have the motion, the person who made the motion and the second agreed that it was to be 3 years. Should we do another roll call vote right now to codify that?
Maybe just do it to be safe. I think because you're still in the same meeting, you might be okay, but it doesn't hurt to do a roll call since everybody is still here.
Okay, let's do it that way then. We'll do a roll call vote, please, based on the original motion with 3 years.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Sicolo?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Sorry about that. I didn't catch it at the time. Moving on to the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Downey, your monthly update.
Good morning.
Yeah. So, from an inmate standpoint, our locals, which I think at the
Popped it on the screen.
prior to the beginning of our shutdown, we were around anywhere from 290 to 300 locals. That local number is now down to 52 actually, 252. Our out of county in April are down to 259. I talked to our criminal justice committee and passed this information along regarding COVID-19, and being that we do have a large group of individuals in a confined area, I am happy to report that as of today, we still do not have a case of COVID-19 in our facility. That's a credit to our medical department and our correction staff who have gone above and beyond in trying to prevent this from getting into our building. And part of the reason that we have not taken any additional out-of-county prisoners or detainees from the marshals or ICE. Although it's hurt us a little bit financially, I think in the long term, if we can keep COVID-19 out of here, although I'm not quite sure that it's possible, I think it's inevitable that at some point we end up with it, but if we can take steps to delay it as long as we can, I think it's going to be financially worth it for the county. On top of that, we do have our own local arrests. We haven't stopped policing. We haven't stopped arresting people. We have 297 arrests, individuals who have been brought into our jail since March 20th, the beginning of the shutdown. So those unfortunately haven't stopped. And our guys are out every day dealing with the unknown, much like healthcare workers and others who are on the front line of this pandemic. So credit to them as well. Our department as a whole has done great work in dealing with this pandemic, not only from a police and correction standpoint, but emergency services standpoint. We have been able to obtain a number of PPE for a lot of people across the county. So very proud of that, and know that we'll continue to provide that as much as we can. Any questions on that?
Any questions? All right, we're looking here, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, because it's hard to see with raised hand. All right, moving on. Go ahead, Mike.
So I guess before we get to number two, in addition to our housing, I would like to advise this committee of the issues that we are having with the Illinois Department of Corrections. Some of you may not, some of you on the committee, on the Criminal Justice Committee know, but for those of you that don't, part of one of Governor Pritzker's executive orders allowed for DOC to not take those who have been sentenced to the Illinois Department of Corrections. And they are still at county jails across the state of Illinois. In our case, we have right now, I believe, 15 inmates who have been sentenced by the courts to a prison term, and the Illinois Department of Corrections will not take them due to COVID, even though it is their statutory responsibility. Understanding that, we have been in negotiations with the Department of Corrections that they will at some point agree to a per diem, which they will pay us for housing their prisoners. As I told the Criminal Justice Committee, I think it's as important to let the Finance Committee know. This is one of those things that I will believe when I see it, that the state of Illinois will pay us for housing their prisoners. I don't anticipate us receiving any money from them. If we do, then it'll be icing on the cake. But at this point, they are kind of hedging on the whole negotiation of rates, and so it's still kind of up in the air. But at this time, we have, like I said, 15 who should be in the Illinois Department of Corrections. who are being housed in our facility. So, questions on that?
What's the total number of days, Sheriff?
You know, Mr. Hess, I don't have that in front of me. I can certainly get it and text it to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay.
Second on, under our report is the resolution for vehicle loans. If you recall back, I believe it was last fall, you approved the purchase of these vehicles. We have cut that back significantly. I think the original number was about $850,000 that you approved. In working with the bank at the time, we were under the impression that we could do this in 3 years, and the bank has come back under the advice of their legal counsel and said they can only do it for 2. So we said, as a county, we cannot do it in 2 years, so we went back out and we talked to one of the other vendors who submitted a proposal to us, and who at that point were only, the original interest was 2.5%, the other vendor was 2.6%, and I talked with that vendor and they will match the 2.5% and go 3 years, and the number has been reduced from $850,000 to $550,000 for vehicles and equipment. So technically you're just approving a change of the banks and the amount.
Same number of vehicles and all?
No, we cut back on the vehicles significantly.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Seroy, as vice chairman, makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Vice chairman of the committee. I think that was Mr. Swanson with a second.
Yes.
Righty, and these are the Explorers we're not getting, correct?
Not getting the Explorers, no.
Correct. Okay. I don't even think they're making them right now.
No, they're not. They're,
Yeah.
well, they just started production of them on May 18th.
Okay.
But the Tahoes are here from a local dealer, and if we could get this on that meeting on next Tuesday, that would be great.
Okay.
If that's possible.
Nancy, do you have the information you need to be able to have that resolution for Tuesday?
I do actually have it done.
Okay. All right. So no
I just
problem.
needed
We'll
to
add
know
that.
the final. Yeah, I just needed to know what they finalized. And in the resolution, there is a portion. It is correct. There is a statute that says the county board cannot enter into a loan agreement with a financial institution for more than 2 years. However, there is also a section that says the county board can do installment payments for up to 10 years for personal property. And since the police, the sheriff's vehicles are personal property, we can go up for 10 years on an installment plan. So a 3-year agreement is no problem.
Okay.
And that's in the resolution, so you'll see it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments, thoughts? I guess the difficulty in getting these was pretty timely because we could use the savings at this point.
Well,
this
I
was-
know.
Yeah.
I think it was as much, you know, even though we're spending money, we're, I guess, saving money, although I don't use the same argument with my wife, but anyway.
At least you admitted that publicly.
I'll pay for that later.
Yes, and frequently. Is there any other thoughts or comments? Otherwise, we'll do a roll call vote. We have the motion in the second, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Seroy,
Aye.
Mr. Washington,
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Mr.
Sorry,
Hess,
your mic.
Aye.
Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Ms. Weber,
Aye.
Mr. Payton,
Aye.
Ms. Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger,
Aye.
Ms. Haas,
Aye.
Mr. Sponson,
Aye.
Ms. Zucolo,
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler,
Aye.
motion carries.
So if, just to summarize, Mike, if I were writing the story, it would be the county just reduced their vehicle spend by roughly $300,000, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty, moving on. Looks like, have anything from the auditor's office this month? Is he on the call? He's not on the call. Other business, bidding and letting, Mark Rogers. You can do it from there, Mark.
Hey, Andy.
Yes.
Is the auditor not coming to finance anymore?
I don't know. He was on the invite, right? I don't know.
Okay, just curious.
I haven't been notified either way. So, okay, sorry, Mark. We have bidding and letting for something you had to get on the agenda. Okay, floor is yours.
Need a motion. Motion to open the bids.
Motion to open the bids. Mr. Washington, second.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. All those in favor of opening the bid, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. There you go.
Thank you. This morning we have one of the last lettings for the year. This is for Moments Road District for their section 20-08-000-00-GM Supplement 1. This is for oil and chip work to be done in the township. Only bidder this morning is Grasso Construction Company. They have a cashier's check in the amount of $1,000 as a proposal guarantee. And they have an ATC attached. Grasso's bid is $34,370.80. $34,370.80. I believe we're less than 10% above our estimate.
Yep. So is there a motion to approve the bid pending the highway? Do you consult with the highway commissioner and the
Yes.
road commissioner in that area? After consultation, is there a motion to approve or accept?
Don't move.
Mrs. Parker, second. Mr. Washington, I believe?
Payton. Okay.
Oh, Mr. Payton. Any questions? Roll call vote.
Mr. Lear? Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Searay?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Sponson? Mr. Sponson?
Aye.
Ms. DeColo?
Aye.
Mr. Dennell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Mr. Searay?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Twice.
You voted twice.
I get to vote twice.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's like you called-
Democratic way.
Hey, come on now.
Oh, okay. Slap me. Slap me.
All right, moving on. We have the next item, I think the last item on the agenda, is an intergovernmental agreement between the County of Kankakee and the Village of Hopkins Park. The board may know, Mr. Payton knows, I've been working with, a larger group of people. The push for the NICOR natural gas project into Hopkins Park is still moving forward. There's multiple bills in the legislators have down there. It wasn't part of the essential business that they took up, but it is something that will be moving forward. And in the discussions with the mayor of Hopkins Park, they have agreed to let the county be the fiscal agent for any grants and any monies that will be funding this project. Because we have the infrastructure, with being able to monitor those grants in a much a better fashion than the limited resources they have in the village of Hopkins Park. So we look forward to being that partner and helping them through the process. Ben Wilson in our planning department / economic alliance has been bird dogging a lot of these grants and the applications, but in order for us to apply for the final grant, which brings the pipeline into Hopkins Park, the fiscal agent and this agreement needed to be executed in order for us to be able to accept any monies and then obviously be the pass-through to the village. So if at this point we probably should take a motion, and then we can get into any more questions. And that's Mr. Payton with the motion.
Second.
And then the second, please. I'm sorry.
Mrs. Haas.
I'm sorry.
Jackie.
Mrs. Haas. Okay. Sorry. I had my whisperer over there. Thank you, Mr. Siroy. It's tough. I mean, you guys, I don't know if you can know that. You got all these Brady Bunch squares on the screen here, and you try to figure out who said what. It's tough. So, questions. Is there any questions for me or anybody else regarding this project and why we're doing this? Pretty cut and dried. It's one of the best things we can do is to get natural gas into Hopkins Park. It's a game changer for the community, and it's something that I've been working on. Heck, I started talking about it 10 years ago with the Blagojevich administration in Illinois. Was it Illinois First or something like that? I can't remember the program. I remember going out there, and we've been talking about it forever, and we finally got a state senator pushing, a state rep. Locally, we have the financial situation figured that this takes care of. So hopefully at the end of this year, we'll be able to start talking about dates to do this. Associated with that, we're looking at maybe possibly doing broadband while we're digging the trench for the natural gas pipeline. We're going to see if we can't get broadband out there as well for internet access for the area. So there's a second set of funding mechanisms that will get from the pipeline into the homes and through grants, and then the conversion of all the LP equipment that they have right now, or the propane equipment into natural gas. The fittings, the piping, all of that. So it's not just getting it to the town. That's the first part of this. The second part is how to get it into the consumers' homes, and that's another grant. I believe that's where Lindsay Parker's bill addresses that part about it. So. Yes, Mr. Washington.
How far is this pipeline going to extend from the state line to where?
Well, it goes from, I believe, Ben, you've seen the map. I believe it goes from roughly 17 into the village, correct?
It comes down Route 1 on 4000 South. It moves over into, through St. Anne Township, through Pembroke Township into Hopkins Park. There's three options as far as the plan's concerned that we're finalizing with NICOR. So it'll come all the way into the community, and the, I don't want to call it critical infrastructure as it's defined, would be the main drag through Hopkins Park and all of that surrounding area. So any associated business or residential structures. We're looking at about 400 structures being served in the area as a total project. Just keeping in mind as we look for funds, the goal for us is to get the critical infrastructure installed and get the gas to Hopkins Park, and then work to the chairman's point on additional legislation for additional projects, the alternate conversions, the things that would need to be done to kind of flush the project out fully. So it might be in 2 phases, but the main project is running down. I think it's either 3000 South or 4000 South right off Route 1 north of St. Anne into Hopkins Park.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Payton.
I would just like this committee to know that the process of getting natural gas has been a long history in Pembroke and Hopkins Park. And I like to say our chairman, Senator Joyce and Leonard Parrish, they roll their sleeves up and they making it happen. And I thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. With anything else, I guess if that's being said, we will be spending money at some point, so let's do a roll call just to get it on the record. Do we have a motion in a second?
Yes.
We have a motion in a second.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. DeColo?
Aye.
Mr. Deno?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye. Could you go back to Mr. Payton? Mr. Payton?
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. It's a big step when we can get this to happen for the whole county. Is there a motion, Mr. Hess, that you feel compelled to make at this time?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Is there anybody that would like to second that?
Second.
Mr. Donnell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? You're outvoted. Have a good day.